in collaboration with Rishhood University. After a great start to this refresher course yesterday, in which we understood the context in which Gita is set in the war of Mahabharata and the leadership lessons that one can take from Bhagavad Gita, I'm sure all the participants are looking forward for yet another enriching day of learning today. Today's morning session will be on the topic of Bhakti Yoga, as all of you know, the path of devotion. This session is divided into two parts. Part 1, which will be from 10:30 to 12 noon, followed by a break of around 15 minutes. And part 2 will be from 12:15 to 1:45. We will have a possibility of taking questions from the participants at the end of the session based on the time availability. To enlighten us on this subject, we are blessed to have with us Swami Narsimanandaji. Swamiji is a monk of Ramakrishna order, both Ramakrishna Math as well as Ramakrishna Mission, founded by Swami Vivekananda in 1897. And he is presently the secretary of Ramakrishna Seva Ashram, Kozhikode, Kerala. Swamiji runs a higher secondary school, a kindergarten, and a polyclinic. Swami Narsimanandaji has edited a volume of Swami Vivekananda's teachings titled Vivekananda Reader. Swamiji specializes in Indian studies, Indian philosophy, sociology of religion, philosophy of religion, and religious studies. He is also a member of International Interdisciplinary and Interreligious Research Group on Consciousness Study. Swamiji is multilingual and has made solid knowledge contribution with publications in Hindi, English, Sanskrit, Malayalam, Bengali, as well as Tamil. It is my sincere request to all the participants to create an environment within oneself so that the knowledge that we receive today from Swamiji goes deep within us and shines through our actions. So without losing further time, I now invite Swamiji to kindly help us understand and assimilate the essence of the yoga.
Suprabhatam, good morning to all of you. I'm happy to be part of this program where teachers or faculty are being given the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, also contextualizing Bhagavad Gita wisdom in terms of leadership, in terms of skills to handle challenges in our day-to-day lives. With that approach, let us try to understand Bhakti Yoga as taught or as represented by Sri Krishna in Shrimad Bhagavad Gita. Bhakti, we all know, is the path of devotion to understand reality or understand God or realize God, which is according to the Bharatiya Parampara, Indian tradition, it is the Parama Purushartha. It is the final goal of human being to understand one's nature or to understand God, which leads to what we call moksha, which leads to freedom from three kinds of suffering. So we all know there are three kinds of suffering. One is suffering generated by one's own body and mind. Another one is suffering generated by or caused by other living beings. The third kind is suffering caused by natural elements. So, Adhi Atmika, Adhi Bhautika, Adhi Daivika. These are the three kinds of suffering for which we repeat Shanti 3 times after every Shanti mantra. So, this suffering and the seemingly unending cycle of suffering has to be overcome, has to be stopped, and the this is the ultimate goal of human condition, and so it is called Atyantika Dukkha Nivritti, the complete cessation of suffering or complete removal of suffering. Towards that end, there are many paths which we can take, and in the Bhagavad Gita, there are these paths are all called as yoga, and every chapter ends with a colophon saying that this chapter is also this is the yoga, and every chapter is given a name. The interesting thing is, as you might have already seen, even the first chapter, which is termed or called Arjuna Vishada Yoga, is also called a yoga. Arjuna Vishada means the depression or the confusion of Arjuna, and that or anxiety of Arjuna, and that is also termed yoga because it is the cause which leads to the inquiry. If there were no suffering, there would have been no inquiry to get rid of suffering. So it's because there is suffering that we inquire and we want to find a way out of suffering. So that itself, to understand the condition of suffering, to acknowledge the condition of suffering, to come to terms with the condition of suffering is the first step in an inquiry of truth, which will eventually lead us away from suffering. This is the general idea of all the yogas. So there are 18 chapters in the Bhagavad Gita. All 18 chapters are 18 yogas. Now, it was Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya who brought out Bhagavad Gita from the wilderness of Mahabharata. We all know Mahabharata has its a big text having only 1,100,000 slokas. So that comes to 2 lakh lines. And so Mahabharata has got 18 Gitas. And Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya, he commented on Shrimad Bhagavad Gita, and thereby he brought it into prominence. And Bhagavad Gita talks about 18 yogas. Swami Vivekananda, he commented on, explained 4 yogas from this Bhagavad Gita. And so that is his contribution, that he brought out or emphasized 4 yogas. They are Bhakti Yoga, Raja Yoga or Dhyana Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Karma Yoga. Now, here today we are attempting to see what Bhakti Yoga is. Now, why is devotion important for us? Devotion is important even in the context of leadership because devotion gives us the idea of the big picture, so to say. It gives us a context to us, and it gives us where our position is in the scheme of things. So, oftentimes we see that leaders, obviously because of their training, because of their expertise, which is why they have been put into leadership positions in the first place, there is much egotism involved there. And whenever we try to equip leaders, whenever we try to train leaders, whenever we try to coach leaders, we come across this big roadblock of leaders not being able to understand the big picture, not being able to understand their pitfalls or their failings, and those failings become blind spots. They are not able to understand, or they're not able to perceive their own weaknesses or the mistakes they do. And after a certain point, a leader does not come across or does not get people who will uh, frankly or with candor tell the mistakes, or there will be some kind of a person who will be pointing out the problems of a leader. For obvious reasons, that is very difficult to get. So in this context, I believe bhakti yoga gives us the answer. What is considered God, or what is considered the ultimate principle of this universe? We call it God, Brahman, etc. Now, that principle can also be seen as the inevitability of things in this universe. So, there are some things which we can control, or some things which we can regulate. There are so many other things. In fact, there are only a few things which we can regulate, and the rest of the things are beyond our control. Most of the times, they are the given. And so, they are something which is inevitable, which we have to just accept. Now, how does a leader, or even how does a teacher, a faculty, accept this scenario? So, I believe Bhagavad Gita, particularly through the lens of Bhakti Yoga, gives us this idea. So, it puts us into our place. How does this happen? We all know the setting of the Bhagavad Gita, as you have already seen it yesterday. So, the setting of the Bhagavad Gita is, first of all, we need to answer the big question here. Why does Bhagavad Gita start with a shloka or a statement from Dhritarashtra? Bhagavad Gita is supposed to be a dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, but we see that the first shloka is by Dhritarashtra. Now, it might have been mentioned yesterday, but even if it has been mentioned yesterday, I just want to repeat it here. Why does it start with the shloka of Dhritarashtra? Why is Dhritarashtra speaking here? So, if you go to the Mahabharata, proper Mahabharata original text, we all know that Sanjaya got this boon where he could see things from afar, distant, and could tell it to other people, much like the live telecast we are so familiar with today. So, just before the day of Mahabharata war, the first day of Mahabharata war, Sanjaya goes to Dhritarashtra. This is what we find in the Mahabharata. He goes to Dhritarashtra and he asks Dhritarashtra uh, whether he wants to listen to, or that he will come the next day from the first day of Mahabharata war and give a running commentary, live commentary of what is happening in the battlefield. Because Dhritarashtra, we all know, is blind, so he could not be part of the war because of his blindness, and because he is quite curious, or he wants to know what is happening. So that is why he will come and tell those things. That is what Sanjaya tells Dhritarashtra. Now, Dhritarashtra says, that's a very beautiful reply. He says that I don't need to see the war because the war is already decided. There is no doubt in my mind. There is not even an iota of doubt that we will win the war. We meaning the Kauravas. Actually, Pandavas are also Kauravas. They also belong to the Kuru dynasty. But here, generally, we use the word Kauravas for the team of Duryodhana and others, or the team of Dhritarashtra's children. Now, Dhritarashtra says, I don't need to really see because Bhishma is there. Bhishma is the commander of the army. And so I don't really need to see that because it is a foregone conclusion. We all know what will happen to the Pandavas. They are going to be defeated in no time. And it's only a matter of time. So there is no real point in listening to all this live commentary at all. So I don't want. This is what happens. And so Sanjaya is not giving the live commentary. But as we know, on the 10th day of the war, Bhishma is laid down on a bed of arrows. And in that uh, scenario, on that day, after the war ends in the evening, Sanjaya goes to the court of Dhritarashtra, where he is speaking with some other people of his court. And then he says that this is what has happened. Dhritarashtra, King Dhritarashtra, O king, this is what has happened. And Bhishma has been laid on a bed of arrows. He's just waiting for the opportune moment to give up his body. So this is what has happened. So that is when Dhritarashtra, in a mood of shock and surprise, utters this first shloka of Bhagavad Gita. Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Mamakaha. It's Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyusavaha Mamakaha Pandavaschaiva Kim Akurvata Sanjaya. So you all have heard this shloka many times, and you all know the meaning also, but I will again repeat. Dharma Kshetre, the Kshetra or the field, here it means the battlefield, which is there to decide Dharma. Dharma means what is righteous, what is correct, what is right. So that field, and of course it belongs to the Kuru dynasty, so it is also Kurukshetra. It is the battlefield of the Kurus. Samaveta Yuyutsavaha. Yuyutsavaha means those who are Yuyutsu in the plural, Yuyutsavaha, those who want to fight a war, wage a war, or fight a battle. They are called Yuyutsu. So Yuyutsavaha, those who want to do that. Samaveta, assembled. So here, in the next line of the shloka comes the real problem. The problem which gives rise to this whole teaching of Sri Krishna to Arjuna. And the problem is that of confusion generated by attachment. So in the next line, Dhritarashtra says, Mamakaha Pandavaha Chaiva Kim Akurvata Sanjaya. So, oh Sanjaya, what did my people do? So, here is the problem. Pandavas are also very much related to Dhritarashtra. They also belong to the Kuru dynasty. But the attachment is towards one's own direct offspring, one's own direct progeny, direct sons. So the question is, Mama Kaha, my people. And what blunder did my people commit? And what great thing did Pandavas do that they could achieve this seemingly impossible task of defeating Bhishma? And so that is the premise. That is the context where. So the whole Bhagavad Gita and the other recounting of the war for the first 10 days is done in a flashback mode. It is a recounting. And from the 11th day onwards, Sanjaya starts doing a live commentary of what happens in the battlefield. So here, this Mamakaha, the purpose of explaining this first shloka is to bring home the point that this Mamakaha is the problem. And we all know at the end of the war, when Sri Krishna takes Bhima to meet Dhritarashtra, he pushes a statue, an image of Bhima made out of iron, and he pushes that towards Dhritarashtra, who is blind. But though he is blind, he embraces that statue and he uh, crumbles that statue into dust. Means he makes that iron statue powder. That is the that is the kind of hate and the need for revenge that Dhritarashtra harbors in his mind. And that again comes because of his attachment to his sons. In the first shloka, uh, the idea of righteousness, that there is dharma and that dharma needs to win, is quite evident by the word dharma kshetre, in the field of righteousness or in the field of dharma or in the field of in that battlefield which is going to determine who is righteous, etc. So this is used by Dhritarashtra. That means Dhritarashtra is not a person. Of course, he is a great scholar. He is well learned person. He is also a good administrator, etc.